right. Hey, Sarah.
Hi.
Everyone, this is Sarah. She's one of my previous Portland doula clients that I had to have on for telling her birth story. And I'm just so excited to see you again and catch up and talk all things about your birth.
Yeah, so excited to see you too, Allison.
Oh, so maybe we could start with just who you are, and what you do.
Yeah. Well, I am Sarah. What do I do? I am currently in my final 2-week stretch of a doctorate program in Chinese medicine, so acupuncture and herbs, and I've been doing that for the last 4 years in Portland. Prior to that, I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area for about 8 years, and I worked in a completely different world in tech product marketing. Um, so the pivot was extreme, but I am really looking forward to graduating and being in practice soon, hopefully. My husband's name is Nicholas. We met in the Bay Area and moved here together. And we have a daughter who will be 2 in a few months named Goldie.
Oh, like she seriously, her name is that's like the best because it fits her so beautifully too. I love your story and I love how you got to Portland as well. So I would love to hear kind of how it all happened that you ended up in Portland and also yeah, your journey to pregnancy and having yeah, going through all of that process.
Yes. So we ended up in Portland. We had always sort of fantasized about the idea of leaving the Bay Area at one point to really put some roots down. And my husband's family he's from Seattle, so we would do the drive a lot. And even before I met him, I visited Portland a couple of times, and I loved it. And back then, Portland was even better than it is today, I have to say. I loved the smaller city, the sort of like neighborhoody feel, like the food and nature. Um, and so when I was deciding, where to go to school, the best school at the time was in Portland for Chinese medicine. So we visited and we were like, this is a no-brainer. And then we planned to move here. And it's been great. I feel like I haven't really been able to explore as much as I want to because I've been so busy in school. So that's something I'm really looking forward to doing more of once I'm done.
Oh, so amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's such a huge program too. I mean, Portland's just the place to be for all things like acupuncture, herbs, medicine, all of those things. And so you're doing your doctorate and you're thinking of having a baby in the middle of all that. That how did that all
Great
go?
question. Yes. Well, we weren't getting any younger, and I um, I had been so the program I'm in is really great. It's mostly women. It's a medical program, and it's like a natural medicine. So a very supportive community when it comes to like your needs and family planning. And so the school was actually quite used to women in their 30s having babies in the program. So I actually consulted with teachers, our registrar who had worked at the school for over 30 years to discuss when is actually the best time in the program to have a baby. And this was like one of the first questions I had at orientation. And we nailed it down to getting pregnant in my second year and having that baby my third year, like in the beginning of it. And I told Nicholas, I was like, hey, so we need to basically try to have a baby the week of my Thanksgiving break. And he was just like, all right, like, he's always up for whatever. He's like, if you think we can make that work. And I was like, I think we should at least try. And so, there was a whole thing about I was diagnosed with PCOS. And so I initially felt like I wasn't going to make that work, and I was getting really stressed about that. But of course, with like the magic of acupuncture and herbs, we got pregnant the first try, and so her due date was basically the week of Thanksgiving.
I mean, so you just manifested that.
We did. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, we really did.
So incredible. Oh, wow. Okay, so how was pregnancy for you? And kind of what was going through your mind when you were deciding of like where I should have my baby,
Yeah.
getting a doula? How did all that look for you and Nicholas?
Yeah, I knew I wanted a doula even before I got pregnant. So I've always been obsessed with birth work, but even more so during the pandemic when I had this stretch between being employed and then waiting to start school. I had some free time, so I did a doula training virtually when I was living in Oakland, and it was amazing, and it totally radicalized me in all things birth. And I never supported any like births in person, but I feel like I knew enough to sort of, I was the person that friends would either ask for referrals or like advice, questions, whatever. And I loved doing that. So I was really looking forward to my own and just having that level of support. Um, I just, it's so invaluable, like having that sort of advocacy. And we had friends move to Portland that we were close with in Oakland. And when they got pregnant, and they didn't know anyone here, I like convinced them to find a doula. And they were really skeptical because they're not woo at all. And I was like, it's not like that at all. This is for the both of you. And they found you. And so when it came time to have my own baby, I was like, I had only heard the most amazing things about you. And for me, it was a no-brainer. My pregnancy was really low risk. Like I felt really good throughout it. The first trimester, there was maybe a week where I was a little morning sick, but I never threw up. It was just a week where I ate like Cheez-Its. That's about it. Things were really smooth until I was about, I think I was like 28 weeks, and I was hit in a car accident, which was pretty bad. Our car was totaled, so that was quite a stressful shock. Obviously, we went to the hospital and everything was okay, but it did freak me out a little bit, and I worried about what that impacted to my body. And so I was able to get like really great care through the rest of my pregnancy because of that. Like I took extra good care of myself, getting prenatal massages almost every week, doing pelvic floor PT to really understand what it feels like to like let go. And so I do feel like a lot of those things really contributed to the smoothness of it all.
Oh,
Yeah.
so incredible. Yeah, no, I remember when you texted me when that all happened, and I was also just like, I'm here, I'm here if you need anything, and was just also just so grateful that it wasn't as serious as it could have been. But it's one of those things that can stay in the body, that fear, and you don't know how it can impact your birth as well, and you don't know what could come up. And you were so amazing at getting that care and really taking care of yourself afterwards. I am very inspired by that, because that must have been just really scary.
Yeah, it was really scary, but a huge lesson learned. When that sort of thing happens, like urgent care is not going to see you; they'll turn you away, which is what happened. You have to report directly to your hospital. Yeah, yeah, and plan to be there for at least 5 hours for fetal monitoring.
Wow.
Yeah,
Little Goldie was just as strong as can be, and he's like
unfazed.
unfazed. Oh, okay. So how did you decide of like where I'm going to give birth? How did all that conversation happen? And what were you doing like in the meantime to prepare for birth?
I was doing so many things to prepare for birth. I'll get into that in a little in a bit, but first, where to give birth. I was really a little bit torn in the beginning, and I think I talked to you about this too, between a birth center and a hospital. And I was definitely very interested in the birth center. I think for me, being in Portland and living next to like one of the nicest top children's hospitals I've ever seen in my life, made that decision really easy because it was so close to home. I could still have the water birth that I wanted and try for an unmedicated birth in the hospital setting with my midwifery team. And so for me, it was kind of like the best of both worlds because it had the best NICU. It was even closer than the birth center, and it felt like a hotel. And so I didn't really know that that was possible. I know it's a little bit harder to try to do that at a hospital setting, but because I had you and because I had midwives, it felt like it actually would be totally fine. And so we decided on the hospital, and I think Nicholas was a little more comfortable with that decision and for the first birth anyway. So that's what we decided. And we came up with a whole plan together of how that would look. I wanted to try for a natural unmedicated birth just to try. Like I wanted to really see what I was capable of. I was never not open to medication, obviously. I didn't want to like suffer during my birth. But I felt like it was a really good opportunity to like really feel this experience. And just knowing what I do about birth and knowing how different it can feel when you really prepare for that level of sensation. I thought it was like cool. Like I was very excited for it. But I'm a freak like that. And so what I did to prepare was I listened to like every podcast you sent me. I read almost all of like Ina May's books. I read the Emily Oster book that everyone reads and had some mixed feelings about that. I did love the part about drinking wine because I definitely did that, and Goldie is really smart. And then my number one book it's written by two doula midwives. The title's kind of strange, but it's called Labor Like a Goddess. And I thought it was awesome because all the other books really got into like the physical. I mean, Ina May, a little bit that emotional connection too, but this book was really about how to like spiritually prepare for birth and becoming a mother and entering a whole new identity and sort of like mourning the old identity now before baby comes so that you are fully present and like ready. And I loved that, and it had a lot of journaling prompts, and it's a book I send to everyone when they get pregnant now because it was so impactful. I listened to so many birth stories in my third trimester. There's an amazing podcast where it's just birth stories, also hosted by a doula, and I listened to the full range, like natural home births to like emergency C-section, just getting an idea of like everything that can happen. And I found it to be like really empowering to do that rather than, I think at that point I had done all the education and I really just wanted like real stories. And I was getting really good care. I was getting acupuncture, body work, chiropractic care, pelvic floor. I was walking a lot, doing stretches with Nicholas every night that you had taught us. Like we were really doing a lot.
Oh, oh, it's so amazing. Like I feel like sometimes, coming in as a doula, you're like, you want to be that person, but it's also like a coaching job. Like, it's like, yeah, but if you do these things, like this is what can just help so much. And it feels so like, giving you one more thing to do on top of your incredibly busy lives. But
I loved it.
But it really was one of those things. Well, hey, if you have like 10 minutes to do this, and one of the biggest things is listening to those birth stories. So it's why I'm doing this and why I'm inviting all my clients on, because we need more positive birth stories, but also it doesn't have to be positive, just more birth stories out there for people to learn from.
Yeah.
And just we're saying about the hospital in Portland. I mean, it's one of those places where I'm so fortunate as a doula that I got to be in that place in all of America of that I got to be a doula in Portland, Oregon. I feel so fortunate because I learned so much from all these incredible hospital midwives, home birth and birth center midwives, but also just the care, the community, that type of just it's a very magical place to be when being pregnant and giving birth, and that you have so many options. So I'm glad that settled on that.
Yeah, even at school, we talk about how Portland and Seattle are really sort of leading the charge when it comes to OB-GYN and like peds health. Like we do things here that in other parts of the country they are not doing at all. Like they'll probably catch up in 10 years. And so this feels like one of the best places in this country to have that sort of birth.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so you were doing all these things to prepare. You were the, top A student of mine. And then now birth is happening. Like, how did everything start? And yeah, what was going on for you and Nicholas during all this?
So, I was looking at the timeline of events, and another key detail that I forgot was you and I went on a walk together at Irving Park on Thursday, November 16th. And I think we just like wanted to catch up. Like, my due date was around the corner, but it was like the most heartwarming conversation where we just talked about like our visions for life. And now that I think about it, maybe that really just got the oxytocin flowing. Because I think the next day, that was on Thursday. Yeah. The next day I had a massage in the morning and I noticed that I had some like fluid, like some liquid on my underwear. And I think I texted you or called you and I was like, should I be worried about this? We did the smell test, like the color, and it was just clear and odorless. And you were just like, watch it for the day, watch the amount. And I was like, okay. And then I noticed that there was a little bit more. I think we had a more serious conversation about what to do. And at that point, I was feeling pretty okay. Like I wasn't feeling like there were no other signs of early labor. And I think you had said like, labor's probably going to start really like, soon, like maybe in the next 24 hours. You can let the midwives know, like if you're concerned that there is some fluid happening. But at the same time, like it's ultimately up to you. Like this is probably what's going to happen if you call. They're probably going to want you to come in. You may have to be admitted to the hospital. And I think at that point, like I didn't feel fully ready. I felt like inside that things were going to start happening soon, but like that was not the right time. And I think your advice was to like wear a pad to just make sure that it wasn't like a big amount. And so actually for the rest of the day, I think there was like no fluid, but then the next morning I noticed a little bit more. And I had acupuncture that morning, and that was the day that I was just going to call my midwives, like regardless. But after acupuncture, I remember there was like a little bit more, but I had a feeling that like the birth was happening that weekend because it was a Friday. It was like around Thanksgiving time. I wanted to get a Christmas tree. So after that appointment, we drove to like Walmart to get like ornaments and stuff. And I remember feeling like something happening, like not contractions, but like maybe a little bit crampy, like sort of stopped me in my tracks sometimes. And I was getting a lot of like Braxton Hicks contractions like around that time. So it was a little bit hard for me to distinguish like, what that was. But we came home and I think it was like close to dinner time. I really started feeling things happening, but I got that rush that people often talk about where you are close to like going into labor and you feel like you need to get a lot of stuff done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I had some outstanding like quizzes and tests for my herbology class. And I remember trying to take those. And it was when I was taking those on my computer that like I was getting these now I know like contractions. I was having to like sit up and like breathe through one and then sit back down. But I was like doing okay. I was able to like complete all of them. But Nicholas saw me and he was like, "Are you sure you should be doing that?" And I think that's what triggered the like, oh, maybe it's happening. And so I think I texted you, and that was like 5:36.
Mm-hmm.
And Nicholas was telling me, he was reminding me this morning, by the time it was like 8, like 7:30, like he was timing them. Maybe an hour later, they were like 30 minutes apart. Then like 20 minutes after that, they were like 15 minutes apart. It was going so fast. And I was like, I need to eat a huge meal right now. Like another like ping, like eat. And so I got like a great meal, fries, like fried fish sandwich. It was just like exactly what I needed. We ate. I was able to eat okay. By the time we were done with dinner, we turned out and called the midwives, and like they were happening. The range was kind of like wild, like at like 10 minutes, and then it was like 5 minutes and like 3 minutes. So fast, like within an hour. And that's when we called you, and he was really confused because we're like, we've heard, like, no one has told us like this can happen this fast. Like it usually is not like this. So like what is happening? And I think at that point, like it was getting so intense that I moved upstairs. We drew a bath. I was in the bedroom, and I think you got here when I was like in the bedroom. And you probably can tell that story better than me because I was totally in my own world at that point.
I mean, when I get there, like I go upstairs in your beautiful home. I love your home. And I go upstairs and Sarah is just pacing. She's just pacing back and forth and just kind of like she'll lay on the bed, and when she got a contraction, she would like get up and like walk around. And I was just kind of like really like observing you, honestly, because as a doula, when you come into, your world, it's such a, yeah, it's a different realm. And so you're pacing back and forth, and I really couldn't read you because I really want to, as a doula, just observe what's happening first a little bit to kind of read the room. But it was really hard to read what was going on with you because you were coping so well. And then you were kind of talking, but then you were also like kind of not making any sense. And so I was just like, okay, let me just like continue watching, kind of see what you're doing. And then I remember we go into the bathroom, and this is where, yeah, I think were you sitting on the ball before I got there? Had I told you to do that before? Or was it when I was there?
You told me when I was there to try getting in the shower, and I guess I was like reaching up or something, and you were like, try the ball.
Yes, like
And it was
like kind of climbing the walls, like you were kind of like trying to get, like it's almost like when you see someone, they're trying to get away from the contraction, like, oh no, kind of moving it, but you weren't really moving away from them, you were kind of just moving up. And I was like, okay, let's try to go down.
Yeah.
And that's when you were kind of on all fours instead in the shower. And
well, when I got on the ball, like that was an immediate no. Like it felt so horrible. And I think that's what cued you. I mean, that among other things, to like tell me to stick a finger and tell you what I felt. Does it feel like a balloon? And it absolutely did. And at that point, I think I got on all fours, and that felt so much better. But you were probably like, wow, if we keep this up, she's going to give birth in the shower.
And I was like,
so
okay, so
like
balloon, and you were having this bloody show that we see. They were like, okay, cervix is changing. She's kind of disoriented, but she's kind of with it. Being on all fours feels good. The ball feels an absolute no. Let's go, Sarah. Let Nick get the bags in the car and let's go. And you.
Yeah, I go downstairs, I fill up my water bottle, I lace up my sneakers. I take my time, find my hair clip.
I'm like, you're doing all these errands right now. And then I'm like, is it early then? Like, what is it's so unclear.
Nicholas is getting all the bags that we never got to take into the hospital anyway. So the drive to the hospital, it's only 5 minutes. So it was probably the worst part. Every bump was so intense. I couldn't even sit in the seat. I was like, I don't even, I would pay a lot of money to see what I looked like at that point. But we get there and we park in the garage, of course.
Middle
Walk to
of
the entrance. Entrance is closed because I think it's like around 1 something a.m. at this point.
And the main entrance is closed, and so we have to walk around to the main like children's emergency entrance. And Sarah, you like grab onto me and Nicholas, and you're like, "What did you say? Do you remember?"
She's coming.
She's coming. She's coming, and I'm like, "Let's just keep walking. Let's keep walking."
But I remember having to stop because the contractions at that point were so intense, and I really felt like I needed to push. So we get to the hospital, and I think immediately we get a wheelchair, which helps a little bit by mostly just there is something blocking. And then we get there, and they try to send us to another hospital.
They're like, we're on divert, because we had called them earlier, and like kind of to see what the status was, and they're like, we're actually on divert. And so when it was time, when you had said all these things, I was like, oh, let's just go to the hospital. Let's like not even call them again. Let's just go, because it was like, oh, you have to press this button and this button and this button before you can even talk to someone. So I'm like, no, let's just go. And so at that time, they brought us into a triage room, because they're like, she's probably not going to stay, because you did not look like you were about to push out a baby, So they're like, they wheel you in calmly into this triage room. And that's when your body literally starts pushing.
And that's also when I was like, I'm hoping for a water birth. That's part of my plan. Like my doula has it, I think. And they were like, they looked at me and they were like, it takes 45 minutes to fill the tub, and the baby's coming before that happens. So yeah, we're in triage, and I think they quickly wheel me into a room. And again, like, why should I get a doula? For all of these reasons. Like, a doula will stand their ground when a hospital tries to bully you into going to another hospital and you're about to give birth. They will support your partner with moving forward with that decision and not calling 5 times, because it's probably what Nicholas would have done. Like, he likes following rules, and I love that about him, but this was no time to like follow rules. And it just like, it was happening and we were there. And so like having someone be able to like be like, no, like this is the situation, was huge, because I couldn't really communicate that much at that point. I did about the water birth, which was kind of funny.
This, Alison, the water birth. No, Sarah, you're gonna be so
No.
soon. Really were. Okay.
Yeah. And I think he like still tried to ask, and they were like, no.
Yeah. I was like, I know how much this would mean to her. But yeah. It was happening.
Yeah. And so when they say like your birth doesn't always go the way you expected, like that's definitely still true with mine. So I ended up still having the natural birth, but it was also because there was no time even for medication, like putting a catheter on. Like it was just, even if that wasn't my plan, like, going to the hospital at that point, like you're going. And so, we moved into the other room, and I think I immediately started pushing. And it felt really hard to slow those down. But it felt like totally out of my control. I tried to slow it down. I think the midwives were trying to get me to slow it down a little bit, they were worried about tears. But I remember I was laying on my side, like on the table. It is the last position I wanted to give birth in, because I have like a hip injury, and I know that laying on my side is like not the best for me, but like you knew that. And so you were able to like support one of my legs while I was pushing, still had socks on. So gross. Like it happened so fast. I just took off my pants, didn't even have time to take off the socks. And Nicholas was on the other side, and I just started pushing, and it was so fast. Like, how long do you think I pushed for?
I mean, I don't think it was more than 5 minutes, like 5, literally, because it was one of those things where it's like, that's when, the water bag, like that's when we see that Goldie is actually still in her water bag because of all this whole like leak. Is it a leak? Is it really a leak? Or like what? And then we start seeing that bulge out, and I like say, I need to get this on video.
Recording.
Like, is it okay that I take your phone and video this right now?
Yes, I was like, absolutely yes. We had actually talked about this type of birth before, I think, on our first visit. And you were like, it's super rare. And I was like, I want that. Yeah. And it was so cool. You know, she was supposed to be a Sagittarius. She came a couple days early to be a Scorpio and came out in water. So, I mean, the writing was on the wall. But because she came out in her sac, like she was so pristine. I just remember her being born and like she just looked like she had taken a shower. Like there was like no like mucus or anything. She was just wet. It was so cool. All the nurses were excited too because it was like it's a cool thing to see. And I've watched the video so many times. It's like, whoa.
Like,
So
the only client that had, you know, an on-call birth is what we call it, is like the baby's born in the sac, and it's so rare, but it's also like you had a really strong bag, and she's just the most special little girl, and it just like you said, it just the writing was on the wall.
yeah, I know we were torn about names actually, and I was waiting until she was born to like make that decision, and it was so obvious that she was just this golden Goldie when she was born. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's just so impactful. And it's so, like you said, like we can't prepare for this day, but we can prepare with a team. We can prepare with people that we trust and have them surrounded by us. And that's one of the biggest things we can do to that, you know, as an investment to this experience. And you went the full mile. You did everything. You did all the education. And I am just still beyond flattered. It's just like it's imprinted in my brain, your birth of like just how it all went and how little we know, you know, like however many births you've been to, however much you know, there's just like there's so much about birth we don't know, and it just keeps it so interesting and fascinating. And just being pregnant right now, I'm just like feeding off of all these memories and all these empowering women that I have witnessed birth. I'm just like in awe of every single one of you. You're just incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really fun to like go back. I actually kind of miss parts of being pregnant and giving birth because it was such a positive thing, and doing all of that work. Like it never felt like work to me. Like I got excited about it. I guess I really leaned into the experience. I think if it felt like a chore, like I wouldn't be doing. I mean, the mile circuit felt like a chore. I didn't love that one. I didn't do that one that much. But the rest of it, like for me, it was just like I love having this knowledge, you know. Yeah.
Incredible. So how was your postpartum, that immediate postpartum, those first couple of days? And yeah, anything you want to share about that journey?
The first couple of days we were at the hospital for the first day, and I will say that for me was like the biggest downside to the hospital birth is you can't leave when you want. They make you stay at least 24 hours, and I know a lot of people like don't want to leave the hospital, but we were just so ready to be home with her. So we left, I think, as soon as we could in the next morning, and I will be honest, like the first few days at home were really rough. My milk supply had not really come in. We were trying to get colostrum or anything out until like a spoon and like syringe it into her mouth, but she was crying so much because she was so hungry. And it just like I felt like I was, you know, like all of that confidence I had going into birth, I feel like as soon as she was born, like I felt so insecure about, you know, how to like provide for her. You know, I think she was just on us, contact, naps, and sleeping like constantly, but I think feeding was really hard. And it remained hard for like the next few months. Her latch was okay, but like taking to bottles was really hard for her. We saw lactation consultants and they made all these recommendations and they assured me she was getting enough, but like I could just tell she was still hungry. And she's a big eater, and like she still is today, And what ultimately worked for us and for me was, and this is just like advice I give in general in the postpartum period, is like really listening to my own intuition and like picking up on the cues that my baby's giving me and sort of taking all the advice and education, but like experimenting like without the noise. And so what ended up really working for her was a bottle that was not on the like lactation consultants like list, but it was great for her. It's what she needed. I ended up only being able to breastfeed her in like one or two positions on one boob for the most part. And I was just really committed to wanting to breastfeed that I made it work, even if it wasn't totally the most comfortable for me. And also, I was always a like just enough or like barely enough supplier of milk. And so I think after a few months, we decided to start supplementing with formula. And that was like the best decision we ever made, because it allowed me to continue to pump and breastfeed, but also just make up that like 20 to 30% with formula. And it was totally fun. She did not now want to refuse breast milk or the bottle like you sometimes hear. We're often told to pick one or the other, and I find it so silly, and to stress about that. And so once we started doing that, things just got a lot easier. Nicholas could give her a bottle at night, and like things were going really smooth. But I wish I could go back and just like hug myself in those first few months, because it just felt so hard, and I was pumping so much, and my like nipples were so sore. Yeah, it was rough. It was really, really rough. But I'm really happy that we kept going and I didn't give up, because I felt I really wanted to be able to breastfeed her. And we still are breastfeeding, like, maybe like just at night, like wanting to go to sleep, or like when she's sick, and I don't pump anymore. But it's kind of amazing that we can still do that. And I love being able to do that for her. I never thought I would be breastfeeding still. And when I tell people that, they're kind of shocked. um, but it really works for us. And, the new recommendation is to 2. And like, I totally understand why you would choose not to do that. But at the same time, if it works for you, it's kind of amazing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's really, there's so much focus on the birth, and then we just don't touch on the postpartum uh, as much as we should. And I'm grateful to hear all these experiences, and that, fed is best, and there is no one or the other. And, as a doula coming in, I sometimes feel that I'm also needed more postpartum than in pregnancy and birth. But it's like with the whole supply, and you're doing all these things, and it's like, yeah, that realization when to let go, but also keep going, has to be a lot to navigate.
And I think one of the biggest motivations for me when it comes to breastfeeding was like I went right back into school. She was born, I had 4 weeks, and then I went right back into school. It was a hybrid model, so some classes were online, but I was also going in person. And so I knew I wouldn't be there as much as I wanted to be, like present. And so for me, that time was so precious. Like Nicholas had a 5-month leave, so he was like the primary caregiver for the first 5 months. And so I needed that connection, but it also made it so challenging because I was pumping at school, I was in school. It was really wild. And the perseverance, like I think I'll be able to like better understand it one day when I have a little more space and time. But it was just crazy that I did that. And I don't necessarily recommend it, but it's what I needed to do, and we made it work.
I'm so proud of you. So, so proud of you, because going to school, navigating all of this, and just, yeah, you just kept going, and it's very admirable. And I feel like when I look at Sweden, and we're supposed to be so progressive with all the maternity leave, like people are still struggling so much with breastfeeding and giving up very, very early. And like, it's like, it's everywhere in the world, where it's like, there's just not enough support. There's not enough, of any of that. And so, yeah, I'm really I'm grateful to hear that you know what you want to do different next time, but that, yeah, going back, and I'm hugging her too, because like she was incredible. And I met some of the strongest women I'll ever know in the States because of going back to school and work and everything after a couple of weeks is such a reality for so many. And the fact that you kept going, it's a strength that also, and that resilience, it's rare.
Yeah, thank you. I and also when you're on social media, you see like all of these things about breastfeeding that are so extreme, like people like oversuppliers essentially, and that's like a lot of content that's out there. And I remember finding one account where she would just post like how much she pumped that day after breastfeeding her baby, and it was like maybe an ounce, like maybe two. And you also told me that this was normal, but like just seeing that meant so much to me because it was like the first time that I saw a normal amount of breast milk, or like what can happen in a pump, you know? And so it was just so helpful. But yeah, especially postpartum, the stuff that you are getting on the internet, whether it's Instagram or TikTok, is just, it can be really hard to tune stuff out and not feel like you should be doing what this person is doing, especially when it comes to feeding and sleep.
Mm,
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, is there anything else that you would like to kind of touch on in terms of postpartum sleep? Yeah, anything at all that any advice or anything that, yeah.
Yeah. Um, my main piece of advice, or like the thing I learned, I think the most with her, with Goldie, is she's a very unique child, just like every child is their own person with their own temperament and needs. And, I would look at guidelines for wake windows, for how much she should be eating, how frequently, like how she should sleep. And she was always kind of like not fitting in those. And I remember in the early days, I was trying to like fit her into those things, and it clearly was not working. And so my advice is, like, we have an intuition. It's the same intuition when we're pregnant and going into labor about what's best for our child. We're not going to know what's best for our child until they're born. And so there's only so much you can prepare, right? Like, we had a crib ready for her, and this is a baby that never could sleep in her crib. Like, you put her down and a minute later the eyes are open. And so I think just adjusting to that, for us, it was a lot of naps on the go, like in a carrier. She never would sleep in a bassinet stroller, hated the stroller for the first 6 months of her life. And I spent so much time trying to figure out what stroller, and so I think once I was like, okay, like she's actually not like the average, like her sleep needs are very low, and they still are. But her like food needs are very high. And once I figured that out, like it really felt like things just got so much easier. And they're still not easy. She's 21 months old and she still doesn't sleep through the night. And again, we do all the things. Like, we have an amazing bedtime routine. Her room is the perfect temperature. She's now in a queen size floor bed. She has a full tummy before bed, but like it's like we've optimized enough to know at this point that that's just kind of who she is, and we accept that, and we do what works for us. And yeah, so that's like my biggest advice, is to like obviously be open to guidelines, but to also really I don't know, just meet your baby like where they're at. Yeah. Yeah. And I actually, like, I've helped a friend with this too, who was very similar with Goldie when it came to feeding. And they were trying to feed her like a lot of milk every like few hours, and she kept spitting it all up. And it's just like she needs longer times between, or she needs less, and just experiment with that. And like that's what ended up working. And so, yeah, I think it's hard when you're a first time parent you want to be doing things right.
Mhm.
And so especially in this country, like it's very challenging because people have such strong opinions about these things. Yeah. Yeah.
But it goes back to that too, the community, like having a community, whether it's in person, on Reddit, wherever it is, like knowing that community is everything. And it's something that we've lost so much in our culture, is leaning on other parents who've gone through this and done this and who are doing it at the same time as us. And we just haven't seen a lot of women breastfeed in front of us our whole lives. Or, it's just like, it goes back to why it's such an important piece to bring back, is that community. And just again, like you're saying, experimenting,
Yeah.
and nothing works for one baby is going to work for another, and your baby best, and trusting that
Yeah.
intuition.
Reddit is amazing. Pregnancy, postpartum. Yeah, it's the best place to just get wide variety of experiences. It's like it was my number one resource. I also really love the Hey Sleepy Baby account because she does polls on things like controversial topics as it relates to everything. And it's really cool to just see the variety of experience that people are having. And she also sort of pushes back on a lot of the conventional like sleep methods, I guess I'll say, in
Love.
this country. Yeah. Yeah,
So
so I think finding the right places on the internet, like it's not all bad. Yeah,
exactly, you will find your community no matter where.
yeah.
Sarah, I just want to go back just quickly to that walk that we had the day before you went into labor, and how we really were manifesting for our vision of life, and how for one, I can't wait to see all the places that you're going, and all the moms and birthing people around the world that you're going to be helping as soon as you've finished school. Congratulations, finally. But also, like, I'm coming back to Portland. I want to open my birth center. I want you to be my doctor of acupuncture and herbal medicine and everything. Like, I just am, yeah, I love that you're so in this world and wanting to help and support people in the fertility and all the way through postpartum journey. And it's just so needed. And yeah, I just can't wait to manifest more with you.
I know. I can't wait to. It's the thing I love the most, even in the clinic at school right now. The patients that I just get so excited to see are the ones that I'm helping with like menstrual cycles and fertility. And even in school, like it's really been amazing to see the impact that regular treatment can have. And also like this, like just the support from a like emotional perspective, like the sort of like confidence boosting that can happen when you're surrounded by people who like have your back and like believe in you, when it comes to what a scary thing such as getting pregnant and giving birth, which it does not have to be scary, and we've proven that out. You prove that out with everyone you work with. And so I'm just so grateful that we met, and like the work that you do is so invaluable. And I'm ready to get going and get started so I can work with amazing doulas and midwives, because it's really life changing. Like a positive birth experience like this is so transformative. Like I definitely felt like a completely different I feel like a completely different person having gone through that. And it's allowed me to like get to know myself on a level that like I didn't know existed, like that sort of grit and perseverance. I was also like, wow, I did that, like shaking after I gave birth. I remember I had like really bad shakes, and I know it's like a common thing, but it was also just that adrenaline, like it was wild. And I was just like, wow, like who is she?
Oh my gosh, it's so incredible.
Yeah.
It's so powerful, so powerful. And I hope, I want to come to a place in our world that's like everyone can look back at their birth and just feel so positively, no matter what happened, no matter how it went. And it's the most incredible thing that we do in our lives. And I'm just so excited for you to have more babies in the future, maybe, and just following along all those journeys, because I love following your life and all that you're doing. And
Likewise. And I'm so excited for you so soon.
So soon. 36 weeks this week. It's so insane. But yeah, I'm going to be leaning on all of you and know that I'll be reaching out because, again, I don't know what baby I'm going to be getting and what identity my life is going to be shaping. I don't even. So yeah,
Yeah.
you in my life.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited for you. And it's like the fact that you're doing these interviews right now in the final stretch is just, it's so smart because I just feel like it does something to us when we hear these stories and build this like community, this like, group of support. It's really, yeah, you go in feeling so differently when it feels like you're not doing this alone, like you're not the first person to like give birth, right?
Yeah, I'm just filling up my oxytocin with
Yeah.
all of my right now, and it's not even work. It's just like the best hour that I get every day. So I'm just so grateful for your time, and just thank you so much again for hopping on and going to all those places with me. So thank you.
Thank you, Allison.